13 of the fantasy football season. And he has a few kickers. I have his sleepers this week. The first guy, Gano of the New York Giants. So Gano, he's been a pretty solid fantasy kicker this year. But he's still available in 91% of fantasy leagues, which is a little hard to believe for me here. But anyway, Week 9 versus Vegas, 11 fantasy points. Week 11 at Tampa, 4. And Week 12 versus Philly, 7 fantasy points. So this week here, a good matchup for Gano at the Dolphins that give up the 4th most fantasy points to kickers. And their defense has been a bend but don't break type of defense this season here is Miami. But I think, and the Giants, they'll move the football decently, knowing if Daniel Jones most likely is going to play now in this one and not Mike Lennon. But anyway, it wouldn't surprise me at all to see get 7 to 10 fantasy points in this one, where this could be a mid-teen to low 20 type of scoring game for both teams, where it's a grind it out for the kickers in this one. So Gano is a good sleeper option this week. The second kicker staying in the same game, Jason Sanders of the Miami Dolphins. So last season was a great kicking year for Sanders, and this year it's been the total opposite for the most part. Even though the last few weeks he's had some mediocre games. Week 10 versus Baltimore, 8. Week 11 at the Jets, 5. And Week 12, 8 versus Carolina. So right here, just like I mentioned with Gano versus the Dolphins, just same here, I'll mention with Sanders. I think he's going to get a few opportunities. This Giant defense isn't totally bad. Last week they shut down the Eagles, and we even saw them a few weeks ago hold that Chief offense to 20 points. So they got shown flashes is this defense, and I think versus Miami it's going to be the same type of deal where it's grinded out, mid-teens, low 20s like I mentioned, and I think Sanders could get 6 to 8 fantasy points this week, and he's available in 76% of fantasy leagues. And the third and final kicker I have as a sleeper is Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles. So Jake Elliott here, he's had some decent games this season. He's available right now in 71% of fantasy leagues. And he's got a great matchup with the Jets that give up the 6th most fantasy points to kickers on the season. So the Eagles, they don't have a problem moving the football. It's just about executing and finish off drives and not turning the ball over. So right here in this one, I think Jake Elliott could have a good ball game. Last week, I know he only had the extra point, but the few weeks before that, Week 10 at Denver, 13. Week 11 versus the Saints, 19. And then, like I mentioned last week, 1 at the New York Giants. But right here at the Jets that are vulnerable to field goal kickers, I think Elliott could have a good game, and he's a serviceable option this week. So that's a few kickers I have as sleepers for Week 13 of the fantasy football season.